Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephen Warner, also known as Sacral Steve. I've been working on like an intro bio, so here it goes. I help gay men heal their relationships to their emotions and their sexuality so they can dive into a life of deeper satisfaction, fulfillment, and pleasure. I guide them through this work with the foundational principles of energy healing, including Reiki, co-regulation, and building internal safety. These are all the tools that I use to radically transform my own life, and this channel is all about sharing my journey with you. So I have a very special guest today. You guys hear me talk about my mentor quite a bit, and this is her. This is Erin Ryan. She is my Reiki Master Teacher and the spiritual, energetic, personal development mentor that I've worked most closely with over the past 5 years now. So Erin, please introduce yourself.
Oh my God. Well, first of all, just thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. We got the two of us together. Magic always happens. So, just to introduce who I am, right? I am a high level energy and spiritual mentor. I'm the founder of 5 Element Dragonfire Reiki, and I have a master's degree in traditional Chinese medicine and a bachelor's in nutrition, which is actually Chinese herbs. And I support healers on the healer to oracle path, which is an evolution. And so what I do is I teach them how to master themselves, how to heal themselves, how to heal their clients more masterfully as well, and then ultimately to lay the foundation for a 6-figure and beyond sacred business. So I support them in I call myself like a spiritual death and rebirth doula, because the transition of what it takes to be able to become the person to ultimately birth your own unique medicine for the world, to whether that's a unique modality or a book or a codex or a business, that's who I am. So I definitely, while some are like, oh, she does business coaching, it really moves way beyond that because of the higher calling, the higher purpose, like what we actually came here to do, to be, and to say. And that is why I work so closely with dragons, as you know, Steve. That's why I work so closely with the divine, with Gaia, with God, with all of these other things, is so that we can really do what we came here to do. And that's who I am in a nutshell.
Amazing. So good. So good. So before we even got on like press record today, we kind of had a brief little touch base on what we're going to get into. And if you guys are new to my world, like Erin is like, I get pretty far out there down the woo woo spiritual rabbit hole, and Erin is like way further down it than I am. So, and it's also good, but like, what I wanted to, set the intention for this conversation today is for like the spiritual newbies or people that are curious about energy work as it relates to emotional and nervous system healing and as it relates to personal development. Like, what are the basics? What are the foundational things that can kind of get you started? Because like I see it as this rabbit hole that you can keep going down, and I continue to, but I want to trace back a couple steps to the foundation of like, what is this all about and how does it actually work? What are the mechanics behind it? So I want to start, Erin, with your journey of originally learning Reiki. Can you tell me about that?
Absolutely. So my entire life, I've been very sensitive, right? Very aligned to different realms. I started talking to guides and things like that, disembodied beings, when I was transitioning from seventh. It was the summer before 8th grade, so seventh to 8th grade, and that's when I became aware of these beings, right? And so I've always been extremely sensitive. However, I didn't really know what to do with it and how to start to apply my sensitivities. And so I heard of this thing called Reiki. When I heard of it, I instantly knew I needed to do it. I didn't know why. I didn't understand what it was, but I had that calling. I had that sort of feeling, the tug inside. So it took me a while to finally find a Reiki teacher. It felt like a deeply personal process. For those of you, especially if you're new to Reiki, it's not regulated. So it's not regulated by the government or state. So it is a little bit like the wild, wild west. If you're trying to find a teacher, I really urge you all to find somebody who you resonate deeply with, because this is a deeply, intimate experience that you could potentially be going into. And it's the same thing if you have a Reiki practitioner that you go to. So I finally found a teacher. I actually did not hear of, I did not hear of Holy Fire, which is, I started to teach that back in 2015. But in the beginning, I only took Usui. So I went through traditional Usui Reiki, 1, 2, and 3, those first 3 levels. And then started working with my hands, my clairs, if anybody's familiar with those, right? Your different types of ways of perceiving extrasensory information. So for instance, I'm clairaudient, so I hear things from, different realms, from guides, and I channel as well. So those started coming online as soon as I started doing Reiki. My hands, the sensitivity, I was feeling in my body what was happening. And then I kind of let it go. I had life happen to me. I wasn't practicing anymore. I had a son. I had this whole situation where I ended up in a cult and did not know I was in a cult. So I know it's just like it's so wild what happens, right? And so I was and actually that happened before I went into Reiki, but I had started doing energy medicine. So I digress a little bit. But once I got out of the cult, that is when I got pregnant with my son, and I really felt like now was the time. So I started doing energy work during that, got out, and Reiki was a huge part of my healing process. But then I let it go. And then flash forward 2015, I started acupuncture school. So I was pursuing my master's degree in traditional Chinese medicine. And I thought to myself, okay, what can I do here? I really feel a calling to start some kind of business. And Reiki came up, and it was like, boom, it must be Reiki. So I started this business, and immediately when I opened my doors, I got the intuitive hit that I needed to I needed to go back and teach it, right? So now it's been about 5 years since I had first learned it. I find a teacher almost immediately, but she's teaching something called Holy Fire Reiki. I had never heard of it. Back then, it was quite new at the time, but I felt it in my body that I needed to go do this. So I go do the class. And during the class, I have this incredible experience. I am not religious. I am, deeply spiritual, which it's like spend 2 seconds with me and you get that, right? But I had this experience where Jesus, of all people, Yeshua, came to me, and I literally was like, why are you here? That's how disconnected I was from this frequency. I always respected Jesus as a healer, because I knew that that's part of his whole thing, but I never felt connected personally because of organized religion. And yet he was here in front of me, and again, my clairs were already online at this point, so I could perceive him in my mind's eye. And I was so filled with love, every cell of my being, that it was undeniable to me that this being was real and true and was here with me. And it impacted me so much that after that class, my heart, like I felt my heart chakra, which is, chakras are energy centers in the body. My heart felt like it was opening but hurting at the same time. I felt it physically, but I knew it wasn't a physical issue. I knew it was an emotional one. And after that class, for about, I would say, 3-ish months, on and off, my heart was just pouring pain out of it, like almost constantly. But I knew what was happening. And at the end of that 3 months, I had suffered from depression for my entire life since I could remember. My depression was completely cured after that point. I no longer suffer from it. I still had all of the emotions, right? Sadness, anger, frustration, but not depression. And it was like, wow, like this it changed my life. It was absolutely life-changing. So that's sort of like bringing me up to when I learned Holy Fire. Then I started teaching it. That is how I met you, right? You became one of my students, which was amazing. I remember when I first met you too, because I thought it was so cool that you could see energy frequencies, but with your physical eyes. I can't see them with my physical eyes. I can only see them with my third eye. So I remember feeling like, oh my God, this is so cool. This guy is so cool. I'm so excited, right? And kind of that's where it brought me with traditional Reiki. Later on, back in 2022, after working really in depth with the meridian system, I'm a licensed acupuncturist. I work with meridians are energy highways in the body, which correspond to different emotional states. I was able to actually fuse Reiki with traditional Chinese medicine to bring alchemical dragon fire. And I know this is getting out there. Stephen warned me. He's like, okay, let's keep it semi-introductory, but suffice to say, it feels really fucking good, okay? It is an energy, bliss frequency, love frequency, that you're bringing into the meridians, which are energy highways in the body, to clear emotions. So for instance, I'll just give you, a really like introductory or like quick taste of the earth meridian. Okay. There's 2 earth meridians in the body, energy highways, right? And they correspond to worry and overthinking. So 5-element dragonfire Reiki, which is what I developed in 2022, it brings that frequency Reiki, which is pure unconditional love, into the earth meridians to clear out worry and overthinking. So that's how we stabilize it. Even though, we talk about, like you said earlier, and we get into the woo a lot, we need to always ground it and anchor it back into reality. So that is the translation. The translation is the nervous system coming online, the nervous system being able to heal deeply, and our emotional states being able to heal deeply to the point where we can heal things like depression. That was my experience, right? I'm not saying that's everybody's experience or everyone who tries Reiki will have that experience with curing their depression, but that is mine, and it's a big deal. So I'm going to let you jump in, Stephen, and kind of like bring it back where you want it, because I could keep going. It's just
Absolutely. That's all so amazing. So good. So amazing. A couple things to just kind of like touch on and anchor in here. So one is I like to say that Reiki is kind of like the gateway drug to the spiritual journey. And when people learn Reiki, everyone I've noticed has like a certain activation that happens. So they get attuned to learning Reiki. And for you started connecting to guides more. You started to sense energy more. And it sounds like it unlocked a higher sensitivity to the world energy. Would you say that's accurate?
Yes, all of my clairs, all of my sensitivities, they came online even more. So Reiki, it opens your channels up. So I mentioned meridians, right? The energy highways of the body. So channels, it opens your channel up to connect with the energy, and it refines the frequency as well. So, if you think of like a river, you don't want the river to have anything else in it but this really beautiful, nourishing water. Energetically, that's what happens when you take Reiki and you get what's called an attunement, right? Which you mentioned, or so, different systems call it different things. Holy Fire calls it a placement. I call it an attunement installation, and 5-element dragonfire Reiki. So there's different ways, but the point is that we are connecting to a frequency, right? We're opening ourselves up to it that can channel down through the crown, the top of the head, into the heart center and out through the hands, to help ourselves and to help other people to heal dynamically, right? On all levels. You experience it and still experience it. So do I, right? Mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, psychological. I mentioned earlier that, I found myself in a cult. That was an incredibly damaging experience. And Reiki was a pivotal way that I was able to really heal from that whole experience. So while it's like one of those things, and I know you get this, like you kind of have to experience it in order to really like be able to speak to it, like what exactly it is. It can change things so dynamically, so quickly for people. And I definitely feel what you're saying. There's an activation. There's something that happens before you choose to go and do Reiki. And most of my students, they're like, I just had to do this. I don't actually fully understand it. Occasionally they have gotten Reiki. They're like, I went and had Reiki done and it was like really amazing. But it's also amazing to me the number of students, especially early on, who just came because they felt the calling. Like they didn't even necessarily have it done first, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel too that I feel like there's a common misconception, or at least I hear it a lot with Reiki, where you only go to learn Reiki if you're going to go be a Reiki practitioner and do it for other people. But my big thing that I'm trying to shout from the mountaintops is that it is an activation for you first. And you can go and then you'll use it and see clients. But for the personal development, for the personal healing, for the personal activation, I think that's first and foremost one of the most valuable things you get from learning Reiki.
Oh my God, it's pivotal. It's so important. And that is, yes, exactly. We have to nourish ourselves. We have to really tend to ourselves first before we can even be a safe enough space to really hold other people at the level that is possible for us to hold them ultimately, if we even want to do that. I've had many, many students, they'll even go through teacher level, but they're doing it for themselves. They have no intention on doing it professionally or doing it for maybe friends or family, maybe. Reiki. But even then, it's all for them because they recognize the incredible liberation that they feel in their body now as a result of working with this frequency, working with their channel. And it's so beautiful and so important because, well, so many of us who are drawn to healing work, we are natural born healers, and so we do want to help others and be of service to them. But like, not everyone is called to that, or we need to fill our cups first, right, before we are holding those kinds of spaces for other people. So yeah, I definitely agree that it does not at all have to be something like, oh, I'm going to become a Reiki master so that I can go and make money off this. Like, I think that the majority of people don't necessarily do that.
Awesome.
You don't have to.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Something came through while you were talking. What was I going to ask? I forget. But let me go to my next note here. So, energy work as it relates to emotional healing. So, we've got the body, we've got the mind, we have the identities, we have our egos, we have our nervous systems, we have our energetic selves. Maybe this is too open-ended. Let me know if you want me to get more specific. But like, how would you say that using energy work relates to the trauma body and the emotion body? And how can it be used as a tool for clearing out the nervous system to create space for more of what we're looking for?
Yeah. So, like, let's go and just talk about a little bit about what Reiki is, right? Like, so the very succinct way of that I explain Reiki to people is, Reiki is a Japanese form of energy work that promotes healing, reduces stress, right? And it essentially helps your body to heal itself. So when we go to the core of what Reiki is, then you understand, like, oh, okay, like, I am activating my own ability to heal within myself. And the way that I explain it is like, if you have a flower, right, and you put that flower in the wrong conditions, it will wither and possibly die. If you take the same flower and you put it into the right conditions, give it enough sun and water and temperature and soil, right, that's nourishing, then it's going to flourish. I think of Reiki like that, right? That we are Reiki is the sun, it's the water, it's the soil, it's the temperature. It creates an environment for people to come undone so that they can release from the pain body, right? Whatever they need to release so that they can come back into their natural state of balance, right? And so going back to this idea of a river flowing, the river will naturally flow unless something's impeding it. Reiki goes in and it removes whatever it is, whatever's happening, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, that is not allowing you to come back to your natural state. So I mentioned earlier about the nervous system, right? A lot of us, especially if you're in any sort of developed country, we're in the US here, it's quite toxic, in my opinion, how much we push. Everything's about productivity, like go, 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 right? And so what that does to the nervous system, it puts us into what I call functional flight or functional freeze or functional fight, which is where our nervous systems get activated. And so we're feeling like we're constantly being bombarded. We cannot rest. We're not sleeping well, right? We're not processing our emotions. And so we get stuck in what's called the sympathetic nervous system response, which is fight, flight. There's a couple other ones, fawn and freeze. Fawn is like the people-pleasing patterns that, we see where we're trying to appease those that we feel like are in control, whether it's in a relationship or in a job situation, and then freeze, right? That's when we feel paralyzed. We feel like a deer at headlights. So what happens is Reiki goes in and it works with you in such a way that your nervous system can downregulate into what's called rest and digest. Rest, digest, relax. And that's when all of our healing takes place. That's where our digestion comes online. So it's not unusual when I'm working with somebody that they like burp or their tummy starts to gurgle or other things happen or they're yawning, right? That's another sign that your body is downregulating and you're basically feeling safe again. So Reiki creates safety so that your body can naturally do what it needs to do, which is to heal on all of these levels. 5-element Dragonfire Reiki, which is why I created it. It's laser focused, right? We're bringing that frequency into specific meridians, which are aligned to different emotions. I mentioned the earth element earlier, which is worry and overthinking. Another example would be the wood element, which is anger, frustration, resentment, indecisiveness. So you can really work with this frequency. And I see it every day. I've done hundreds, if not thousands, definitely thousands of hours, but hundreds, if not thousands of sessions, or, worked with definitely hundreds of clients. And to watch how quickly a person can shift their emotional state from feeling confused, from feeling heavy, from feeling paralyzed, into feeling light and open and free, like themselves again, like they can finally breathe. It's really amazing. So while Reiki works from the energetic realm, right, that's the what I call the access point, is the energy, the subtle energies which you cannot see with your physical eye, which is why so many people have a hard time. Other things access it from the physical level. So for instance, if you go to a massage therapist, right, they're working with your tissue and your muscle and your sinews. So there's a physical sensation happening. But a lot of people, I don't know if you've ever had this, Stephen, where you go to get a massage and you cry. I've done it, right? Because there's a release happening. You are releasing emotion. So Reiki, it works in a different way, but it's still working with the emotional body, the pain body, the nervous system. And that's one of the things I love so much about it, is it's so versatile.
I love that all so much. And what I'm hearing you say, and what I just agree with, is like, it's like a tool for empowerment. It's a tool for healing, and it's a tool that you get to use for yourself, for your own healing, so that you get to be your own healer versus always externalizing your power and relying on other people for that.
Exactly. It puts it back into your hands, and that's why people come and they take the classes, is so that they have a tool and you can use it all day long. There's so many different applications for Reiki. You can use it like I have to say this because it's one of the things that was so amazing to me when I finally did learn Reiki, is like when somebody says something hard has happened or is happening for them, I never have to be the person again who says, I'm so sorry, I wish there was something I could do. Because if they're open to it, I can always gift them this beautiful energy. And it's not like a magic wand that makes all of your, problems disappear, but it does help you process through whatever it is you're going through. I think of Reiki as like a catalyst, right? From chemistry class, if you all remember, right? Like a chemical reaction could take a really long time, but when you added a catalyst to it, it made that process go way faster. That's what Reiki is. It's a catalyst. Nobody told me that when I first started doing it. When I went and took the classes, I was just like going through life after them, and I was like, oh my God, this thing that normally would trigger me or upset me, I either did not trigger me, did not upset me, or I processed through it so fast. Instead of it taking me days or months or weeks, it took me an hour, a couple minutes, or like I said, did not bother me at all. And I was just like, what is this black magic? This is amazing. So it's so good. It's so versatile.
Amazing. I love the word catalyst. Like, that's so accurate. I see it as like a magic water that comes in like that catalyst, and it just speeds everything up. Now, you mentioned the analogy of you go and you get a massage and you have an emotional release, right? I want to sink a little bit deeper into the pain body, the emotion body, and talk a little bit about the concept of like, we all, not everybody, but in the society that we live in, a lot of us have pain. A lot of us have trapped big T trauma or little t trauma. We have this body that has carried us through our lives and has done such an amazing job of getting us to where we are now. And it's also done an amazing job of storing pain for us that our psyche didn't have the safety to otherwise process. So I'm going to just put my 2 cents on this, and then I'd love for you to jump in and elaborate. I see the body and the pain body as something that has to be addressed. And I see it's truly amazing and kind of frustrating and annoying to me how much the body can store for us. And I see this journey of spiritual development, of personal development, being all around, first and foremost, clearing pain out of the body, because it's that pain that is dysregulating the nervous system, keeping us stuck in that parasympathetic nervous system. And it's keeping us stuck from having what we truly want and desire in our lives. Can you add to that and put your Erin spin on it?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So it keeps us stuck in the sympathetic nervous system response, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. You have to understand when we go into that sympathetic nervous system response, there literally, if you look at brain scans, right? I'm also a neuroscience geek too. So, if you look at the prefrontal cortex, and this is the seat of our higher order thinking. It's our personality, our creativity. You will see blood flow come out, and it goes into the amygdala, which the amygdala is in charge of like, oh fuck, like I'm not safe. There's a problem here, right? So you literally cannot function at the level that is possible when you are stuck in that response state, when you're stuck in, and most, if you ask me, I think most Americans at least kind of live there most of the time. So it's so important to be able to have this tool, and there's many different ways, right? Many different ways to get here. It's not only Reiki, but this is such a beautiful tool in the toolbox to be able to come back into a regulated nervous system state. When you are regulated, then you can tend to this stored emotional pain in the body. And again, there's no such thing, okay? There's no such thing as good energy or bad energy. That does not exist, okay? Energy is neutral, right? It can either be created nor destroyed, right? Like this is well known, especially that piece. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't feel bad in the body, right? Or feel good in the body. So the idea here is coming back to a natural state. So when you work with these subtle energies, instead of them moving like that free-flowing river, anger. Sorry. Anger and resentment. Woo, clearing that out. Instead of that happen, what happens is think of like ice getting frozen in the river, right? Like, and now everything's impeded. We're not going saying, oh, that ice is terrible and bad and wrong and mean and vicious. We're going, oh, we need this river to flow. So we need that ice to melt. So think of the energies in the body like that. And Reiki comes in and it's like the sun, right? It helps to melt that iciness so that you can come back into that state. I totally agree with you when you're saying like sometimes I kind of wish that the body couldn't hold so much, because what happens is if we're not processing what's happening, especially emotionally, then it gets stored in the body. The body is your best friend, right? It only looks out for us and it is trying to keep us safe at all times. So it will store it in different areas of the body, which eventually can become dis-ease, right? It can become pain or tension. And so it's trying to speak to us. And so by having a tool to actually create again the environment and give us the nourishment, the energetic, emotional, spiritual nourishment that we require to process through it, then we can come back to that natural state of feeling free, of feeling like we're flowing, of feeling like ourselves again. And it's such a massive, beautiful gift to have a tool that can bring us back there. It's beautiful.
That's amazing. So why do you think that what's in the way of us processing our emotions? Like, why is so much stored? Why aren't we able to process them when they happen?
Because we do not live in a society that supports that. We live in a society that supports massive amounts of suppression, shaming, and judgment. Like at the end of the day, we don't feel safe enough to process, right? If you look at children, they start off and they're highly emotional. They're very connected to their emotions. And then we, right? Like as a society, we suppress that and we shut it down and we tell them that they're wrong for feeling those feelings instead of walking them through the process of being able to safely move through them, which, I have 3 children. So as a parent, like that, I feel like that's my job, is to walk them through the process of learning how to be in the discomfort and in the pain. We run from discomfort. We run from pain in our society. And this is why I think addiction is so bad. I think depression, anxiety, because we are in this constant state of suppression and running, right? Simultaneously. And projection. right? That's another piece, is projecting our pain like fucking vomit onto other people. And we see that a lot too. So we have to start creating these really safe spaces for people to, I have chills right now, to process what has happened to them. Because it's not just, this is what really gets me. It's not just what happened to you, it's what's happening to you. If you are a human in a human body, especially if you are extra sensitive, right? And it's like nobody's too sensitive, but when you have this ability to feel so deeply and perceive so deeply, it's even more intense. So that's a tall order to process what's happened to you and currently, right? And then the worry for the future. And so this is why it's so important for us to create these spaces where people can come in. And that's why it's like, I don't just do business. Oh my God, no. Like, in fact, I was like rejecting business for a long time. I'm like, I don't teach people business. And it's like, oh my gosh, your business, your sacred business, you are so connected to it. And how much we have to process in order to be able to bring forward what we bring forward. It's not just through a business, obviously. It's whatever you're called to do in your life. It doesn't have to be that. But to be able to support that vision and that dream coming through. And we're not there yet, guys. Like, I hope we are, we get there, but we're just not there yet.
So good, so good, so true. And it's like, oh, I could say so many things, but I want to circle back to the part where you said we run from our pain. Like we run, we suppress, and we project. Now, I want to weave in the concept of our egos or our identities here. So, in order to start peering under the hood and looking under the surface of, what we normally accept to be true for us, because a lot of times when people start this path, they're like, things are not that bad. I just have a little bit of anxiety, or nothing that bad ever actually happened to me. When you start peering under the hood and looking at the pain that's actually asking, if not begging and shouting, to be addressed, it is challenging for our identities. It's challenging for the ego, because we're so used to the story that we've created that everything's fine. And if I just keep doing this, this, and this, everything will be fine. So what do you have to say about our concept of ourself and what's required to start really vacating this pain?
Radical raw honesty. Like actually fucking being honest with ourselves about how we feel and how unhappy we are. And it's sort of like, it can be a quicksand. Like this can be a trap too, which is why so many people just go, no, I'm fine. I'm fucking fine. Good enough. Because we've also seen people who get stuck in it when they're like over identifying, right, with their pain. And then they become a victim to everything and everyone. And though we all have been victimized, absolutely, to take on the identity of a victim as like a permanent, like, this is who I am. Like, whoa, like that's a really, really disempowering, painful place to be. So and we're not even conscious of it a lot of the time, right? So we're going, okay, which do I choose? Do I choose, no, it's fine, everything's fine, right? Have you guys seen the meme with the house on fire and the guy's like, everything's fine, right? And everything's burning, right? Or we see people who are over identifying with it and getting drowned in their pain. So it goes both ways. So we have to be able to well, you know this, Stephen. This is like my mantra when it comes to healing emotionally, is feel it to free it without feeding it. And that one sentence, it has taken me, and I'm still working on it, right, to become more fluent in the skill set that is required in order to be able to safely acknowledge your pain without over identifying with it and actually being able to release it, right? So again, think of the ice, and the ice is now getting melted so that energy is now available to you. So you're galvanizing yourself to then go do something that is way more fun, way more pleasurable, way more not productive in like the traditional sense of like, oh, I need to be productive, but like, oh no, I actually want to have an impact in the world. I want to go do things or choose different things than what I'm choosing. And it is, it is hard. It is hard to be present with your pain and not intellectualize it, not project it, not want to run away from it. I have to like share this really quickly.
Please, please.
And then I will take a breath. I swear. Anybody who knows me, again, like I'm so passionate about this, but I remember when I was really diving into my emotions, okay? And I have always had such a hard time with rage and anger, okay? That was very much so not okay emotion for me to have, right? I even shamed myself around it. And I remember when I started getting really deep into this and I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down for 10 minutes. Before I was in acupuncture school at the time, I'm going to sit down for 10 minutes and I'm just going to create the space, right? The safe space. And I'm going to say, and I said to my body, okay, whatever you need to clear, whatever you need to release, do it now. I'm here. You're safe, right? And I was in a place where I was ready to feel it, right? Without feeding it. Oh my God. I closed my eyes within probably 30 seconds. I felt such intense, and I'm not even going to call it anger. It was hatred, right? I was feeling so much hatred. It was almost overwhelming me. I almost stuffed it back in the box. Like that's how much I just was like, what is even happening? And then I remembered, I was like, no, I just told my body, you can release whatever you want to release. I'm a safe space for you. So then I just breathed through it. So I was just present with it, right? And I ended up going to acupuncture clinic. I remember talking, he was my fiance at the time, now he's my husband. And I was like, I was burning up inside, right? But I was finally letting it out. And I remember speaking to him and just saying like, yeah, I'm so angry right now. I'm so mad. Like I could kill somebody. I'm so mad. But I said it like I'm saying to you. There was no projection. There was no, like, it wasn't taking me over. Right. And by the end of the evening, I remember I went to clinic. I had a great day at clinic. And by the end of the night, when I was driving home, it was gone completely. Like I literally could not even get upset because I created such a space, right? And so that's why bringing it back to Reiki is so powerful, because Reiki helps you process it and move through it so it doesn't own you. And if we don't tend to it, it takes over, right? And then we start acting in ways that we're like, why did I do that? Why did I say that? And then we feel more shame. We feel more judgment, and then usually more suppression happens. And then it's a negative feedback loop. It's a vicious cycle that we can get stuck in. And it creates havoc in all parts of our lives.
It's so good. And I feel like with these, especially emotions like anger and rage, like those are emotions that we aren't demonstrated how to move through in a healthy, effective way. So I've had the same experience. Well, I don't know if it's the same experience as you, but learning how to actually rage and learning how to actually grieve and learning how to cry, especially as a man, like learning how to weep and allow that pain to actually vacate my body is a skill set. It's something that you have to learn to do, especially after decades of being taught to suppress that down and decades of practice masking it or hiding it or just not allowing it to come up. So with Reiki as a catalyst, it helps get that stuff moving. Why do you think, why does our pain keep us stuck in patterns, right? Like why would you say that if we've got a body full of pain, we're going to stay stuck in the current or a like image of the current reality we have instead of moving towards all the things that we really want in our dream life?
Yeah. So pain creates a distortion, right? And so there's a belief systems that are created around it, right? And our bodies were designed to, right? The physical body is designed to keep you alive. And so if something has brought you physical pain, we stay away from that. Oops, I touched the hot oven. Like, whoop, I'm going to avoid that now. But let's say love has brought you pain and you're not processing through that pain. You might end up isolating yourself for the entire rest of your life, never knowing true connection or true love. And I'm not just talking about like intimate connection with a partner. I'm talking about being in communion and connection with other people, being interdependently with them, right? Which is what we're meant as human beings. We're not meant to be alone all of the time, right? Like we're meant to be in community and connection. So our pain, it's like literally fucking stopping us from living our heaven on earth, right? Our timeline where we get to experience bliss in our body, right? Pleasure in our body, sensuality. Pain takes you out of the moment, right? It keeps you from experiencing all of your senses. And I'm not just talking about the extra senses. I'm talking about like your core senses. When I started healing dynamically, one of the things I noticed is all of a sudden food tasted better. When I would look around, the fucking colors around me were sharper. It was like I was seeing in HD. You know what I mean? I was like, what is happening? Why is my sense of smell better? What my sense of touch, like everything heightened because I was more deeply present, because I moved through the fucking pain that was keeping me tortured. Like if you think of like, to me, that's hell. You know, you're like keeping stuck in a loop-de-loop, which is what pain does. It keeps you stuck in a negative feedback loop. I call it the hamster wheel of death. Like, and it's like you get a part of your consciousness, not all of you, but a little part of you gets stuck there, right? And so it's about reclaiming that, and you reclaim it by feeling it to free it without feeding it. And if you can do that safely, right? You and I both have experienced this so dynamically and how much it can change our life. One other thing I want to just really touch on quickly is there's a thing called the stress cycle. I know every time I'm like, I just want to quickly touch on this. It's called the stress cycle.
10 minutes later.
Right? I know. 10 minutes later, like you could just do this, like put your watch on and be like, Erin, stop it. Or like, just like do a little hand wave. But it's called the stress cycle, okay? And so we're meant to go through the stress cycle. And the example I'll use is, and it's from this really beautiful book on burnout that I was reading. And so she's talking about it, and I wish I could remember all of the particulars in this moment. But if anybody ends up being interested, I can find the book. But she talks about like, okay, so we are meant to go through a stress cycle. So the example is, let's say you go out to the forest, right? And there is, the jungle, and there's a lion, okay? And the lion chases you down, okay? And you run back to your village. You go behind the gates, right? The guards are there. And then you can sit down and you can explain to everybody, oh my God, there was a lion in the jungle. It almost killed me. And this is what happened. And everyone gathers around you, right? And then they hold you and they let you process through what just happened to you so that your body, your nervous system can go, right, from the sympathetic nervous system response, fight or flight, fawn or freeze, right? In this case, it was flight for this person in the jungle, back down regulate into parasympathetic nervous system response, rest, digest, right? And then you can, right, come back down. And so you don't have to carry, right? You'll remember it, but it won't be actively happening to you. The fear and the terror of almost losing your life. If you don't walk through this stress cycle, if you don't know how to walk yourself through it, or the people around you don't know how to walk you through it, basically what happens, let's say he comes back running from the jungle and he runs into the community and nobody fucking cares, right? Like the guards aren't at the door, right? Nobody's guarding this person, and they don't get the opportunity to process what happened to them. He will forever stay stuck as if that lion is still chasing after him, right? His body will not know, the nervous system will not know that he's not still being chased by a lion. That is what's happening to us. We feel like we are being chased by a lion almost all of the time with these little punctuations, right, of when we're not feeling it. This is most people, in my opinion.
True. Yeah.
Not everybody, right? And so that's why it's so important, because if you feel like you are being chased by an invisible force or something's going to come and get you, how could you possibly calm down enough, relax enough to then go paint the new fucking Mona Lisa, right? To create this beautiful new invention that saves lives, right? Like create the cure for cancer, right? If you are actively engaged in that. And that's what happens on a level, right? Because bodies are built for stress. We can tolerate a certain amount of stress. There's actually something called good stress too. But this negative stuff that I'm talking about, when you get stuck in that stress cycle, it's like it's still happening to you. And that's people with post-traumatic stress disorder, right? Like you mentioned earlier, big T trauma or little T trauma. Big T trauma is like these big events that happen, right? It's like life is not the same before as it is after, or little T traumas are these little traumas that happen every day, right? Like for children, neglect, right? That's a form of little T trauma, can be depending on the severity of the neglect, but your body is getting traumatized all the time. So that's why it's so important to look it straight in the eye and find people who can hold you and learn how to hold yourself as well.
So that's going to transition us into co-regulation, but something came up as an actual active example. I love the way you put it, that if you touch something hot, you feel pain, and then you know not to touch something hot. Your body will avoid touching that hot thing, right? But on the emotional level, if an emotional pain happens to you and you don't release and move through that properly, you're going to avoid anything subconsciously or maybe intentionally, but you're going to avoid things that might bring up that pain again, because I'd rather not feel that pain than have what that potential thing might offer me. The example that came through, so let's get vulnerable for a minute. I had my first manic episode senior year in high school. And at the time, I had a guy friend. My best friend was a guy. And shortly after the manic episode and the hospitalization and all of the shit that I went through, he kind of dropped off my radar. He kind of dipped out. It became too much for him. And I can't say exactly why, but I lost the guy friend that I had because I became too much. And that is actually something that came up again for me recently, not the experience of losing a guy friend, but there's this pain of abandonment, of loss, of grief, of a friendship that is still trapped in my body, right? That I've still, like, and this is high school, this is 15 years ago. And
Doesn't matter how long ago it was. It's still happening to you. Yeah.
it's still there. And so now that I'm here in Palm Springs, like, I've always had just girlfriends. I've always surrounded myself with just girlfriends. Until recently, I made a guy friend. But when it comes to gay male friends, I'm now in a community where I'm surrounded by them. I have this one friend in particular who I'm really eager to get closer to, but I'm piecing the pieces together right now because I have this resistance to getting close to him. I have this resistance where he checks all the boxes. He's an amazing person. And there's oh, I don't want to get too close because there's that fear, there's that unresolved pain. So my job, my work is to lean into it and feel it, to free it so that I can have what I want and stop unconsciously blocking it out of fear of activating that pain that's not processed.
Isn't it wild how the things that we crave the most are usually the things we're the most afraid of? Because to be in that deep of connection with somebody, it requires vulnerability, right? And so I get that. Like with my husband, we've been together 13 years and I've been through this push-pull with him. It's like I've noticed one of my patterns is like when we get really intimate, and it's not just physical intimacy, it's like a certain level of emotional intimacy, a part of me goes, whoa, like that feels scary to me, right? Because it's like you're so connected, right? And so like I've noticed over, speaking of patterns, over my work has been to allow that intimacy, allow that connection, know that it's not going to destroy me, right? The vulnerability of it, because the what's happening in the brain is like, oh my God, and the heart, it's like, what if I let this person in? What if you let your new friend in and then they hurt you again? Is it going to destroy you? Is it going to distort you? Is it going to, so better not to even get close at all, right? But then we're depriving ourselves. Like we have such a finite time on the planet to love and to be loved so fiercely, right? Like, and so our job is to process, right, what's happened to us, bring ourselves through the stress cycle, be brought through the stress cycle through what you mentioned earlier, co-regulation, right? And that's when I talked about like that whole thing with the being chased down by I was about to say tiger, but a lion, doesn't matter. And like the whole village came in and was like, oh my God, like you're safe. We're here with you. Tell us what happened, right? Then that co-regulation happens so that you can feel safe again. So that's the push-pull you're experiencing. And so now you get to go, I am safe no matter what. Even if this person hurts me, I am worthy of love. I'm worthy of connection. I can handle it because yes, humans are messy, and it's okay if somebody comes into my life for a certain amount of time and then maybe this doesn't end up being the friendship of a lifetime. I trust, right? I trust that I am led to this person, they're led to me. I trust that I'm going to get whatever awareness, whatever gift of this exchange for as long as that may be. And of course you hope that it's going to be forever, but maybe it's not. And that's the journey. And then when we do that, we can experience like the feeling in the body of being held in that way by another person and people, not just one. So like for me, especially being in a cult, a lot of damage around community. To me, community is the most dangerous thing to me. Right. My abusers weren't a intimate partner. It was somebody else. So to me, like I have less issue in intimate relationships as I do in community. So for me to come back into community after being, gaslit, used, abused, all the things, and that's my work, is like, no, there are safe humans in the world. There are safe people. There are loving, kind, open people, and all humans are messy, and that's okay. And that's why it's so important to have a process, right? Because the closer somebody gets to your heart, they're going to activate that for you. But what if that wasn't bad? What if that wasn't a problem? What if you had a safe way to walk and be walked through? I have a friend and we have a very like super special relationship. And we were talking, I think last week, like she's brought multiple things up to me where she's like, okay, I have a thing. I need to talk about this thing with you. And I meet her with such love and honor and just respect, right? And she's like, oh my God, this is so safe. And I can do the same. I can be like, okay, this thing triggered me, this thing happened, and she will meet me with so much love, right? And so we have, especially in this particular way, we have developed, right, and created the safety to process. And I actually think that's what it's supposed to be like. I think we're supposed to be in connection with people. I think they're supposed to trigger us. We're just supposed to have a safe way of navigating that. And as a society, we have not developed a systemic way to do that yet, which is where, healers come in, is we're on the leading edge.
And so in terms of energy work or, working with people like us for healing, two kind of catalysts are what I'm seeing in this conversation. One catalyst is learning Reiki for yourself, to get that energy to be moving through your system, to start helping you personally move through things faster. The other thing that we're talking about is safe humans and safe connection. And like the metaphor with the lion, in an ideal society, when somebody gets triggered in the wild by the lion and comes and runs home to their tribe, they have safe people to co-regulate with, to hold them and to help release that stress cycle. Unfortunately, that's not really the world we live in, and most of us don't have that. A lot of us don't have that safer community around us that are safe and have the skill set to bring us through. So then it comes to working with individuals like you and I, where there is a safe person that can hold you through the stress cycle and co-regulate with you. Can you touch on that, especially the co-regulation component? Because that was the most and continues to be one of the most effective ways that I've worked with you to vacate pain out of my body, because the way I see it is like two nervous systems are more powerful than one. And when you work with a healer, when I pay you to be in a container with you, I get access to your nervous system. I get access to this co-regulative function that adds to my internal safety state. And I see it as we have to have the internal safety to be able to free those denser energies, because freeing them involves feeling them, and feeling them is scary because it's painful and we've never done it before most of the time. So tapping into another nervous system, it's like it expands your capacity to be able to vacate what's otherwise been stored, because you've got two versus just one.
Yep. So yeah, so like when babies are first born, they literally cannot regulate themselves. They need their mother's heartbeat, right? They need their parent or their caregiver to be there with them. They borrow their nervous system, right? Until they can develop their own ability to cope, right? And even once we develop that ability to cope, we need it. So if you have trauma happening, and most of us have it from childhood, I don't know anybody who doesn't, that means that that part of your psyche got trapped in that moment, whatever age you were. Have you ever met somebody who you're like, oh my God, they're acting like a 4-year-old? Yeah, they are. Their 4-year-old who didn't get processed through whatever and got triggered is now active. So co-regulation allows us to move through that. It allows us to feel safe enough to be able to process through, to feel through, to move through what has happened so that we can move forward in life, so that we don't feel trapped, so that we don't feel like we are a prisoner in our own mind and a prisoner in our own body. And especially over the years, I've been doing this for a long time now, I realized one of the most effective things I do for my clients is to hold safe, sacred space, to allow them to borrow my calm. And it cannot be faked. Like it has to be genuine. And so when you work with somebody on such an intimate level, like you and I did, you can feel it. Like, oh, this person can hold me. This person understands me. They see me. I'm safe. I'm allowed to feel this. I'm allowed to express this. I'm not going to be judged. I'm not going to be shamed. Right. And so that safety allows you to move through it. And it's the same thing that you do for your clients. You create that safety, and they can borrow your calm until, right? Because we're not creating codependent relationships either, because that's fucking gross. And I've seen that happen. That's another story, right? We empower the other person, right? Through co-regulation, and their nervous system learns, right? We help them develop the skill set then to keep themselves more regulated, which is exactly what happened for you, right? You walked away from our one-on-one experience being stronger in your sense of self, stronger in your ability to handle, right? You mentioned capacity, your capacity for handling stressors, for handling obstacles, it exponentialized. But I don't want to I know that because we've talked about it, but I want to have you speak to it too.
Well, it's so true. It's like I borrow your calm to move through it. And then once I move through that, I've added a building block of internal safety, of capacity to my own system. So if that stressor comes up again or something in that world, I can move through it on my own. And I think we're getting close to wrapping up here. But the last thing that I want to kind of touch on is like, when it comes to this co-regulation piece, you touched on this at the beginning about finding somebody that resonates with you, finding someone that really resonates with you. And for me, like, so much of what resonates for me with you is that while we didn't have the same trauma, right? We didn't have the exact same life story. You had experienced and moved through and built the internal safety for so many common archetypal themes when it comes to pain. Like, so much, like, I see the reason that you were such a good fit for me is because you had already moved through so much of the pain that I was still carrying. And while you didn't have the same life experience that caused that pain is still that energy. And therefore I was able to tap into your safety state around it and move through it myself.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Precisely. Right. We have had different experiences, but the way that it feels in the body is a match. The frequency is a match. The way that the energy is getting stuck or trapped or whatever is a match. So you don't have to have the exact same thing, but you can, when you find that match, you just feel it in your body. I mean, the amount of times that I've heard from my clients, they're like, you are the safest human like on the planet for me. Like I've never felt safer. And I also feel like you can hold all of me, right? It's such a gift. And that's what we're doing for other people is we're allowing them to bring their fullest self forward in their mess, in their most vulnerable. And we don't judge them for it. We don't shame them for it. It's opposite. We love them deeply and completely in that vulnerability. And there's a saying that like shame cannot exist in the presence of love, right? Shame, pain, like judgment, trauma, all of this stuff that we're carrying around, it cannot exist. Again, like the blazing sun, like, the giant block of ice, it just melts it. And that's what we're doing. We're melting each other, and everyone walks away happy, healthier, more free, more themselves. And it's just like it's the most beautiful thing that, we could gift to another human being.
It's so good. It's so good. Oh, Okay. So I think I'm feeling complete. I'm feeling pretty good. Um, is there any, I mean, I want to give you a chance to share where people can find you. I'm going to put all of your stuff in the show notes and all of that. But is there any like any last things you want to contribute here? Any questions for
Yeah.
me?
Yeah, well, for real, thank you for having me. We always have such a great, like, fun time together. I know you've been on my podcast a couple times now. Like, it's so great, and just our relationship is so amazing. I think that, like, what I kind of always leave people with when I get the chance is to really know and own that your deepest pain can be transformed into your most potent power and medicine for you and for the world. This is spiritual, mental, emotional, psychological alchemy, right? We're alchemists. So anything that's ever happened to us can become medicine, right? We learn how to transform poison into the antidote. And so we all get to make a choice around whether we choose that or not, right? And it is a choice. So it just felt really good to bring that forward, but I feel amazing. I feel very complete. As far as getting hold of me, I am really active on Facebook. I have Krista Lake Reiki is my business page. I also have my personal page, which has, it's my business page as well now. So I have two, and under Erin Ryan for that one. But I also have my website, which is 5 Element Dragon Fire Reiki, REIKI.com to learn more.
Awesome. Well, that will all be linked in the show notes, but thank you so much for being here. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Take care.
Let's see. Stop. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. That is Erin. I absolutely love her. I'm so grateful for her and the medicine she brings to this world. She is, I mean, I've worked with quite a few mentors over the years, but she is the one that I've turned to most and most frequently. I first worked with her in 2019 when she taught me Reiki, and then in 2020 we worked more intensively one-on-one together. And back then I was married to my ex-husband, and we were in a relationship that was just full of dysregulation, of fighting, of codependency, of escapism, and it was just like a jumbled bag of like, And I was still on my Western psych meds to manage my bipolar back then. I was still playing out lots and lots of addictive tendencies. And overall, I just had so much trapped pain, emotion, and trauma in my system, so much dense energy that was causing all of this dysregulation in the external world. So the work that I did with Erin was so pivotal in who I became today and who I continue to become today. And this is now the work that I bring to clients. So if you are curious about what working with me looks like, there is a link in the description. It's a no-cost consult. It's like a little link. You can click on it and just book a 30-minute no-cost consult with me. And we'll just get real with each other. We'll have a super honest conversation. You'll tell me about where you're at, where you're trying to go. We'll kind of discuss what's in the way of that, and then we'll see where, if anywhere, I can plug into that. Where can I be a support system and help you make the changes to the inside landscape to make the outside world reflect back to you what you're really after. So the link in the description, book that consult, no cost, no strings attached. I'm not here to sell you on anything. I'm really here to like support and serve people. So if the puzzle pieces fit, great. And if they don't, I might have somebody else to send you to. I also teach Reiki, so I teach people one-on-one, and I teach it in the group setting as well. So if that piques your curiosity as well, we can talk about that during the no-cost consult. Or if you're just like kind of new to my world and you want to get a little bit closer, pop your name and email on my email list, and you'll get more of me. You'll take a step closer to me, and you'll see kind of what I'm putting out more, and then you can kind of decide like how much closer, or maybe you want to run the fuck away. But it's a great way to just stay a little bit more connected to me and start exploring, what does this world of Steven look like, and is there a way that he might be able to help me? So again, thank you so much for being here. Like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. I am getting some dislikes on my videos these days, so like, if you're disliking my videos, fucking put a comment. Like, tell me what's up. Like, come on. Like, I want to hear. Like, if you're gonna press that dislike button, like, I'm super curious. Like, what are your objections? Like, what's the tea? Like, I want to know. But that's all. And also, like, I'm looking at my vision board right here, and I am so appreciative to everybody who comments and everybody who sends me DMs. And I literally screenshot that shit. And I have a folder on my phone that's titled Love. And I screenshot it and I put it in there and I refer back to it. I look at it. And then when I refresh my vision board, I put that shit on my vision board as a reminder to all of the wonderful feedback that I'm getting. So that shit means the world to me. And I really appreciate you all being here. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.